Her hands trembled as she approached the piano, unaware that the notes she was about to play would silence every whisper and change everything. In a small, picturesque town nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, life moved at a gentle pace. The townsfolk were simple people who cherished their traditions and community gatherings. One such event was the annual Harvest Festival, where everyone came together to celebrate the fruits of their labor with music, laughter, and food. This year's festival promised to be no different, except for one twist that would change everything. Amelia Harper had always been an outsider in this tight-knit community. A quiet woman in her early 30s, she lived alone on the outskirts of town, tending to her modest garden and keeping mostly to herself. She worked as a seamstress, stitching beautiful garments for those who could afford them, but her reserved nature made her an easy target for gossip and ridicule. Some called her aloof. Others whispered about how strange it was that she never attended social events or joined in the festivities like everyone else. What most people didn't know, or chose to ignore, was that Amelia harbored a deep love for music. As a child, she had shown remarkable talent at the piano, practicing tirelessly under the guidance of her late mother, who had been a gifted musician herself. But after her mother passed away when Amelia was just 15, she stopped playing altogether. The pain of losing her mentor and confidant became too much to bear, and so she locked away her passion along with her memories. The Harvest Festival Committee was buzzing with excitement as they planned this year's event. It was tradition to include lighthearted skits and performances that poked fun at the quirks of their small-town life, a way for everyone to laugh together and feel connected. But this year, Clara Whitmore, the unofficial ringleader of the group, had something more pointed in mind. Known for her sharp tongue and knack for stirring up drama, Clara thrived on gossip and loved being the center of attention. She saw an opportunity to turn the festival into her own personal stage, and she already had the perfect target. Amelia Harper had long been a source of fascination and frustration for Clara and others in the town. Her quiet demeanor and reclusive lifestyle made her an easy subject for speculation. Rumors swirled about why she chose to live so far from the heart of the community, rarely attending events or engaging with anyone beyond her work as a seamstress. Some dismissed her as aloof, while others whispered that she thought herself better than them. Clara seized upon these whispers, spinning them into a narrative that painted Amelia as someone who believed herself superior because of her artistic inclinations. "She probably thinks she's too good for us," Clara declared during one planning meeting, her voice dripping with disdain. "Why don't we give her a chance to prove it? Let's make her play the piano during the festival." At first, the idea met with hesitant laughter from the other committee members. They weren't entirely sure how to respond. Wasn't this going a bit too far? But Clara quickly brushed aside any concerns. "Oh, come on," she said with a dismissive wave of her hand. "It's all in good fun. If she's really as talented as people say, then she'll shine. And if not..." She trailed off with a smirk, leaving the implication hanging heavy in the air. The rest of the group slowly warmed to the idea, convincing themselves that there was no harm in asking someone to share their talents. After all, wasn't music meant to bring joy? What could possibly go wrong? Unbeknownst to Amelia, the wheels were already in motion. Clara personally delivered the invitation, arriving at Amelia's doorstep with a saccharine smile plastered across her face. "We'd be honored if you perform at the festival," Clara announced, her tone overly sweet but laced with mockery. Amelia, caught off guard, hesitated. Refusing outright would only fuel more rumors, painting her as even more standoffish. Yet agreeing meant stepping into the very spotlight she had spent years avoiding. Still, with no clear way out, she nodded reluctantly, hoping against hope that she might somehow survive the ordeal without further embarrassment. What none of them realized, not Clara, not the committee, and certainly not Amelia herself, was that this seemingly harmless prank would set the stage for something extraordinary. Unbeknownst to everyone, Amelia carried within her a hidden talent that had lain dormant for nearly 2 decades. Little did they know, What began as an attempt to mock her would soon transform into a moment of revelation that would leave the entire town breathless and forever change how they saw her. The night of the Harvest Festival arrived, and the town square was alive with energy. Strings of fairy lights twinkled overhead like stars against the indigo sky, casting a warm glow over the bustling crowd. The air buzzed with excitement as families gathered around food stalls offering steaming pies, spiced cider, and caramel apples. Children darted between tables, their laughter ringing out like music itself, while adults exchanged cheerful greetings and shared stories about past festivals. It was a celebration steeped in tradition, a chance for everyone to come together and revel in the fruits of their collective labor. At the center of it all stood the makeshift stage, adorned with garlands of autumn leaves and vibrant orange marigolds. This was where the evening's performances would take place, ranging from local musicians strumming guitars to amateur actors performing comedic skits. But tonight, there was an undercurrent of anticipation rippling through the crowd, one that centered on a single performance yet to unfold. Clara Whitmore, ever the orchestrator of drama, had ensured that whispers about Amelia Harper's upcoming act preceded her appearance. People speculated wildly, some wondering if she'd even show up, others gleefully anticipating what they assumed would be a clumsy, awkward attempt at playing the piano. No one could have guessed just how transformative this moment would become. As the performances began, Clara took charge of introducing each act, her voice booming confidently through the microphone. She played the role of MC with practiced ease, her delivery polished and theatrical. With every introduction, she milked the audience's reactions, basking in the attention. When it came time for Amelia's performance, Clara stepped back onto the stage with a sly grin tugging at the corners of her lips. Leaning into the microphone, she paused dramatically before speaking. "And now," she announced, her tone dripping with mockery, "we have a very special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Amelia Harper, our resident recluse and rumored virtuoso." Her words were met with a ripple of laughter from the crowd. Some chuckled nervously, unsure whether to laugh or feel sorry for Amelia. Others snickered openly, clearly amused by Clara's jab. Eyes turned toward the edge of the stage, searching for any sign of the woman who had been thrust into the spotlight. For a brief moment, there was silence, an almost palpable tension, as everyone waited to see what would happen next. Amelia appeared hesitantly, stepping onto the stage with slow, deliberate movements. Her simple dress seemed out of place amidst the festive atmosphere, its muted tones contrasting sharply with the bright colors of the decorations surrounding her. Her face was pale, her expression unreadable, but undeniably tense. Every step she took felt heavy, weighed down by the weight of countless eyes fixed upon her. As she approached the grand piano positioned at the center of the stage, her hands trembled visibly, betraying the anxiety coursing through her veins. The audience leaned forward expectantly, some still chuckling under their breath, others watching with thinly veiled curiosity. A few exchanged knowing glances, certain that this was going to be a spectacle worth mocking. Amelia sat down slowly, avoiding eye contact with anyone in the crowd. Her fingers hovered uncertainly above the keys, and for a moment, it seemed as though she might freeze entirely. The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating, until finally she placed her hands gently on the keyboard. For a fleeting second, nothing happened. The hush over the crowd deepened, punctuated only by the distant chirping of crickets and the faint rustle of leaves stirred by the cool night breeze. Then, with a single note, everything changed. The first sound that emerged from the piano was soft, almost hesitant, like the tentative first steps of someone emerging from darkness into light. It hung in the air, fragile yet powerful, commanding the attention of everyone present. Slowly, another note followed, then another, until a melody began to form, a delicate thread weaving its way through the stillness. What started as a whisper soon grew into something more profound, each note resonating with raw emotion. The music told a story, one that transcended words and reached directly into the hearts of those listening. Amelia's initial nervousness melted away as she surrendered herself to the music. Each keystroke became more confident, more assured, as if the piano itself were an extension of her soul. The piece evolved into a tapestry of sound, layering intricate harmonies and cascading arpeggios that painted vivid images in the minds of the listeners. There was sorrow in the low, mournful chords, echoes of loss and longing, but also resilience in the brighter, ascending runs. Joy bubbled forth unexpectedly, mingling with melancholy in a way that felt achingly real. Tears welled up in Amelia's eyes as she poured her heart into the performance, channeling not only her grief over losing her mother, but also her unspoken dreams and desires. The audience was spellbound. Mouths that had been poised to sneer now hung open in awe. Those who had come expecting to ridicule found themselves unable to look away, their skepticism giving way to wonder. Parents held their children close, instinctively drawing them nearer to share in the magic unfolding before them. Couples clasped hands, feeling the depth of emotion conveyed through the music. Even Clara, standing off to the side of the stage, looked utterly stunned. Her earlier smugness had vanished, replaced by genuine disbelief and perhaps a flicker of guilt. By the time the final chord echoed through the square, the silence that followed was absolute. Not a single person dared to breathe. For several seconds, the only sounds were the distant hum of insects and the gentle sway of the trees. Then, as if waking from a trance, the crowd erupted into applause. Cheers and whistles filled the air, breaking the spell but amplifying the sense of awe. Many wiped away tears, moved beyond words by what they had just witnessed. Some stood up, clapping fervently, unwilling to let the moment end. Amelia rose from the bench, her face flushed but composed. She gave a small, graceful bow, not out of pride, but out of gratitude for the unexpected warmth she felt radiating back from the crowd. Without saying a word, she retreated backstage, leaving behind a transformed audience. The murmurs that followed were no longer tinged with mockery or judgment. Instead, people spoke of her talent with reverence, marveling at how wrong they had been to underestimate her. In that instant, Amelia had done more than play a beautiful piece of music. She had shattered preconceived notions, silenced critics, and reminded everyone present of the power of art to connect us across divides. What had begun as an attempt to embarrass her had instead become a testament to her strength and resilience, a moment of triumph born from vulnerability. And as the applause continued long after she disappeared from view, it was clear that nothing about the Harvest Festival, or the town itself, would ever be the same again. The aftermath of Amelia's performance rippled through the town like a stone dropped into still water, creating waves that would reshape relationships and perceptions in ways no one could have anticipated. What began as a moment of mockery had transformed into something far greater, a revelation not only of Amelia's extraordinary talent, but also of the humanity that binds us all together. As Amelia stepped off the stage, her heart was pounding, not from fear or anxiety this time, but from the overwhelming realization of what she had just accomplished. For years, she had hidden away, burying her passion for music alongside the pain of losing her mother. She had convinced herself that staying invisible was safer than risking judgment or rejection. But tonight, she had faced her fears head-on, pouring every ounce of emotion, her grief, her longing, her resilience, into the music. And in doing so, she had not only silenced her critics, but also reclaimed a part of herself she thought she'd lost forever. Backstage, Amelia took a few moments to collect herself. Her hands trembled slightly, though now it was from exhilaration rather than nerves. She glanced at her reflection in a small mirror propped against the wall, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. There was a softness in her eyes, a quiet strength that hadn't been there before. She felt lighter, as if a weight she'd carried for decades had finally lifted. Meanwhile, out in the crowd, the reactions were equally profound. People who had come expecting to laugh at Amelia found themselves grappling with feelings they hadn't anticipated: awe, humility, and even shame. Clara Whitmore, in particular, stood frozen near the edge of the stage, her expression a mixture of disbelief and unease. She had orchestrated the entire scenario with the intention of embarrassing Amelia, never imagining that the outcome would be anything other than awkward. Yet here she was, witnessing firsthand the depth of Amelia's talent and the grace with which she had handled the situation. For perhaps the first time in her life, Clara felt genuinely humbled. The audience didn't disperse immediately after Amelia left the stage. Instead, they lingered, buzzing with conversation. Neighbors who had once whispered about Amelia's reclusiveness now spoke of her with admiration and respect. "I had no idea she was so talented," one man remarked, shaking his head in amazement. That wasn't just playing. It was storytelling. A young girl tugged on her mother's sleeve, wide-eyed. "Can I learn to play like that someday?" she asked earnestly. Even those who had initially laughed at Clara's introduction were quick to backtrack, apologizing aloud for their earlier attitudes. The festival atmosphere shifted dramatically, becoming less about entertainment and more about connection. A shared experience that transcended petty judgments and brought people closer together. Word of Amelia's performance spread quickly throughout the town, reaching even those who hadn't attended the festival. By morning, it seemed as though everyone knew what had happened. Over coffee and breakfast, conversations revolved around the haunting beauty of her music and the way it had touched listeners' hearts. Some admitted feeling guilty for underestimating her. Others expressed regret for having dismissed her as aloof or standoffish. Slowly but surely, the narrative surrounding Amelia began to change. Where once there had been whispers of suspicion, there was now an outpouring of appreciation and curiosity. Encouraged by the newfound warmth from her neighbors, Amelia decided to take a tentative step toward reconnecting with the community. In the days following the festival, visitors began stopping by her house, not to gossip or pry, but to offer compliments and apologies. Mrs. Thompson, the baker, brought over a loaf of fresh bread, thanking Amelia for reminding her of the power of music. Mr. Peterson, the hardware store owner, sheepishly admitted he had once made a joke about her lack of socializing and promised to do better. These gestures, though small, meant the world to Amelia. They signaled a shift, not just in how others saw her, but in how she saw herself. Inspired by the impact of her performance, the town decided to establish a weekly music night, inviting local musicians to showcase their talents. When approached about teaching piano lessons, Amelia hesitated at first. Teaching required vulnerability, patience, and trust, qualities she wasn't sure she possessed anymore. But as she considered the possibility, she realized it might be an opportunity to honor her mother's legacy while sharing her love for music with others. With a deep breath, she agreed, opening her home to eager students of all ages. The first lesson was nerve-wracking for both Amelia and her pupils. She sat beside them at the piano, guiding their fingers over the keys with gentle encouragement. As the weeks went on, she found joy in watching her students grow, not just in skill, but in confidence. One boy, shy and withdrawn much like she had been as a child, blossomed under her guidance, composing his own short piece by the end of the month. Another student, a retired schoolteacher named Margaret, discovered a lifelong dream of learning to play classical pieces. Through these interactions, Amelia began to see herself not as an outsider, but as a vital part of the community. Clara, too, underwent a transformation. At first, she avoided Amelia altogether, unable to face the consequences of her actions. But guilt gnawed at her, eating away at the carefully constructed image of perfection she presented to the world. Finally, she mustered the courage to visit Amelia's house, knocking hesitantly on the door one crisp autumn afternoon. When Amelia answered, Clara stammered out an apology, admitting that she had intended to embarrass her and expressing genuine remorse for the harm she had caused. To her surprise, Amelia forgave her without hesitation. "We all make mistakes," she said simply, offering Clara a small smile. "What matters is what we do afterward." This act of forgiveness marked a turning point in Clara's life. She began volunteering at the music nights, helping organize events and assist with logistics. Though it took time, she gradually earned back the trust of those she had wronged, proving that growth often comes from acknowledging our flaws and striving to improve. For Amelia, the Harvest Festival became a catalyst for change, not just in how others perceived her, but in how she viewed herself. She rediscovered her love for music, finding solace and purpose in sharing it with others. Each evening, as she sat at her piano composing new pieces inspired by her journey, she reflected on how far she had come. What had started as an attempt to mock her had instead become a celebration of hidden talents and newfound understanding. And as the melodies filled her home, they carried with them the promise of hope, healing, and renewal for Amelia, for the town, and for everyone whose lives she had touched. The days and weeks following the Harvest Festival marked a profound transformation not only for Amelia Harper, but also for the entire town. What had begun as an evening of mockery and judgment evolved into a period of reflection, reconciliation, and renewal, a testament to the power of vulnerability, forgiveness, and human connection. Amelia's life changed in ways she could never have imagined. No longer relegated to the fringes of society, she found herself at the center of newfound admiration and respect. Neighbors who had once dismissed her as aloof or standoffish now sought her out, eager to learn more about the woman behind the music. Some came bearing gifts, homemade pies, jars of preserves, bouquets of wildflowers, as tokens of gratitude for the emotional impact her performance had left on them. Others simply wanted to apologize, acknowledging their role in perpetuating the rumors and misunderstandings that had isolated her for so long. At first, Amelia was hesitant to embrace this sudden influx of attention. Years of solitude had conditioned her to keep people at arm's length, and the idea of opening up felt daunting. But as the apologies and compliments poured in, she began to see them not as empty gestures, but as genuine attempts to bridge the gap between her and the community. Slowly, she allowed herself to trust again, sharing pieces of her story with those who cared to listen. She spoke fondly of her mother, recounting how the piano had been their shared sanctuary during difficult times. She admitted that stepping away from music after her mother's passing had left a void in her life, one she hadn't realized she was ready to fill until the night of the festival. Inspired by the overwhelming response to her performance, the town decided to establish a weekly music night, transforming the town square into a hub of creativity and camaraderie. Local musicians eagerly signed up to perform, ranging from amateur guitarists to seasoned vocalists. The event quickly became a beloved tradition, drawing crowds not just from within the town, but from neighboring communities as well. For Amelia, however, the most meaningful aspect of these gatherings was the opportunity to teach piano lessons. At first, she worried that teaching might bring back painful memories of her own childhood struggles with perfectionism and self-doubt. But as she sat beside her students, guiding their fingers over the keys and encouraging them to express themselves through music, she discovered a sense of fulfillment she hadn't felt in years. Her students were as diverse as the town itself. There was young Ellie, a shy girl who reminded Amelia of her younger self, whose confidence blossomed with each lesson. Then there was Margaret, a retired schoolteacher who had always dreamed of playing classical pieces, but never thought she'd have the chance. And even Clara Whitmore surprised everyone by enrolling in beginner classes, humbly admitting that learning to play might help her better understand the art form she had once used as a weapon against Amelia. Watching her students grow, not just in skill, but in self-assurance, filled Amelia with pride and purpose. Music, she realized, wasn't just a means of personal expression. It was a way to connect, heal, and inspire. Clara's journey toward redemption was perhaps the most striking example of the festival's lasting impact. In the days after the event, she wrestled with guilt over her role in setting up Amelia for what she believed would be public humiliation. Though initially reluctant to confront the situation, she eventually realized that avoiding it would only deepen her shame. Summoning every ounce of courage, she visited Amelia's home one crisp autumn afternoon, clutching a potted plant as a peace offering. When Amelia opened the door, Clara stumbled over her words, apologizing profusely for her actions and expressing sincere regret for the harm she had caused. To her astonishment, Amelia accepted her apology without hesitation, offering a small but genuine smile. "We all make mistakes," Amelia said softly. "What matters is what we do afterward." This act of forgiveness marked a turning point for Clara. Determined to prove that she was capable of change, she threw herself into volunteering for the weekly music nights, assisting with everything from organizing performances to setting up chairs. Over time, her efforts earned her the trust and acceptance of those she had wronged, including Amelia. Their relationship shifted from one of animosity to mutual understanding, proving that even the deepest wounds can heal when approached with humility and sincerity. The ripple effects of Amelia's performance extended far beyond individual relationships, reshaping the fabric of the community as a whole. Conversations that had once revolved around gossip and judgment now focused on appreciation and encouragement. People began looking past superficial differences, seeking instead to celebrate the unique talents and qualities that made each person special. The Harvest Festival itself underwent subtle changes, evolving from a lighthearted celebration into a platform for showcasing the diverse skills and passions of its residents. It became less about competition and more about collaboration, a reflection of the unity and empathy that had taken root in the town. For Amelia, the transformation was both external and internal. Externally, she was no longer seen as an outsider or an object of ridicule. Instead, she was embraced as a pillar of the community, a source of inspiration and wisdom. Internally, she experienced a reawakening of sorts. Reconnecting with music reignited her passion for life, filling her days with purpose and joy. She composed new pieces inspired by her journey, weaving themes of resilience, hope, and redemption into melodies that resonated deeply with listeners. Her compositions became a symbol of her growth, not just as a musician, but as a person. By the time the next Harvest Festival rolled around, the town was unrecognizable from the one that had gathered the previous year. Gone were the cliques and whispered judgments. In their place was a spirit of inclusivity and celebration. This time, Amelia took the stage not as a reluctant participant, but as a proud contributor, performing an original piece that brought tears to the eyes of everyone in attendance. As the final notes faded into the night air, the crowd erupted into applause, cheering not just for her talent, but for the courage and grace she had shown in reclaiming her place among them. In the end, the story of Amelia Harper served as a powerful reminder of the hidden potential within us all and the transformative power of compassion and understanding. What had started as an attempt to mock someone turned into a moment of revelation that touched hearts, bridged divides, and brought a community together. Through music, forgiveness, and the simple act of listening, Amelia and her neighbors discovered that sometimes the most extraordinary stories emerge from the simplest beginnings. The story of Amelia Harper and her journey through the Harvest Festival is not just a tale of personal triumph. It's a poignant reflection on the complexities of human nature, the transformative power of art, and the importance of looking beyond appearances. At its core, this narrative underscores timeless truths about vulnerability, empathy, and the resilience of the human spirit. Amelia's experience serves as a powerful reminder that behind every quiet exterior lies untapped potential waiting to be discovered. For years, she existed on the fringes of her community, misunderstood and underestimated because of her reserved demeanor. Yet beneath her silence was a wellspring of talent, emotion, and strength that even she had forgotten how to access. Her performance at the festival became a catalyst for self-discovery, forcing her to confront fears she had buried deep within herself. By stepping onto that stage and playing with raw honesty, she reclaimed not only her love for music, but also her sense of identity. It's a testament to the idea that sometimes we must face our greatest fears head-on in order to unlock our true potential. But Amelia's transformation wasn't hers alone. It rippled outward, touching everyone around her. The townsfolk, who had initially dismissed her as aloof or standoffish, were forced to confront their own biases and assumptions. Their initial mockery gave way to awe, then guilt, and finally respect. This shift highlights an essential truth about humanity. We often judge others based on surface-level impressions, failing to see the richness of their inner lives. When given the chance to look deeper, to truly listen and understand, we can break down barriers and forge connections that transcend prejudice. In forgiving Clara and welcoming her back into the fold, Amelia demonstrated the kind of grace and compassion that inspires change in others. Her willingness to extend forgiveness allowed Clara to grow, proving that accountability paired with empathy can lead to profound personal transformation. The role of music in this story cannot be overstated. More than just a backdrop or plot device, it serves as a universal language capable of bridging divides and evoking emotions words alone cannot express. Through her performance, Amelia communicated grief, longing, joy, and hope in a way that resonated deeply with her audience. Music has a unique ability to tap into shared human experiences, reminding us of our interconnectedness. Whether it's a haunting melody played on a piano or a simple tune hummed under one's breath, music has the power to heal wounds, spark inspiration, and bring people together. The establishment of weekly music nights in the town symbolizes this collective awakening, a recognition that art enriches lives and strengthens communities. Ultimately, the story challenges readers to examine their own attitudes and behaviors. How often do we dismiss someone based on preconceived notions? How quick are we to laugh at another's expense without considering the impact of our actions? And conversely, how willing are we to forgive and be forgiven when mistakes are made? These questions invite introspection, encouraging us to cultivate kindness, patience, and understanding in our interactions with others. On a broader level, the narrative speaks to the beauty of individuality and the value of embracing diversity. Each person carries their own story, shaped by joys, sorrows, triumphs, and failures. By celebrating these differences rather than fearing them, we create spaces where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued. Amelia's journey reminds us that growth often comes from discomfort, that moments of vulnerability can lead to unexpected breakthroughs. Her decision to teach piano lessons exemplifies this principle, showing that sharing our gifts with others not only enriches their lives, but also deepens our own sense of purpose. In closing, the story leaves us with a hopeful message. Even in the face of misunderstanding and adversity, there is always room for redemption, connection, and renewal. What began as an attempt to mock someone turned into a celebration of hidden talents and newfound understanding. It's a reminder that the simplest acts, like sitting down at a piano and letting your heart speak through your hands, can have far-reaching consequences, touching hearts and changing lives in ways we may never fully anticipate. As Amelia sat composing new pieces each evening, she embodied the idea that healing isn't linear. It's a continuous process of rediscovery and reinvention, and in doing so, she inspired those around her to embark on their own journeys of growth and transformation. This story invites us to carry these lessons forward, to approach others with curiosity instead of judgment, to embrace our own vulnerabilities as sources of strength, and to celebrate the beauty of individuality in all its forms. After all, it's often in the quietest moments that the loudest revelations occur.